Again, this is how the waistband is looking. And there's a gap right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to close this gap so there's one continuous waistband. So, turn it inside out, making sure that the edges are aligned with one another. I'm going to stick a pin in there. Okay, like I said earlier, I may have to slip stitch the very points of this on the outside because I don't think I'll be able to get all the way into it on this machine. Okay. I'm going to remove the pin now. Let's see how far we can get up in here. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it inside out. Okay, and I got all the way up there. So now we have one continuous waistband. Okay, so now, this thread. Now that I have all these, the seams pressed upward, I want to sew the waistband down to cover. And initially I thought I wanted to turn this under a 1/2 inch and then press, but I'm not going to go through all that. I'm just going to lay it flat and stitch down because it's not going to ravel. I don't have to worry about the fabric raveling and coming apart. Okay, so the waistband is done. Turn it inside out. Let's see what we got. Okay, there are our pants. That's the waistband. Got the elastic in there so it hugs the waist. So all that's left to do on these pants is to put a little hem in them. So I'm going to turn the hem up a 1/2 inch. And that'll be it. So see you at my sewing machine. So I turned the pants inside out. And then I'm going to fold them over a 1/2 inch and form a hem. Maybe I should measure. Okay, so I tried my pants on to make sure the back was the back and the front is the front. And what I noticed was that my waistband is a little chunky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press it flat. And then I may sew maybe 3 or 4 rows of stitching just to flatten it out. Okay, I sewed an additional 2 rows, maybe a roll and a half off camera because the fabric, the thread in the bobbin kept breaking. I guess because of all of this fiber getting jammed up in it. So I did the remaining 1 1/2 rows off camera. So I stitched total 1, 2, 3 rows, and it did flatten the waistband somewhat, so I'm happy with that. But I think it was unnecessary. I'm such a perfectionist that I would feel some kind of way had I not done it. But I think for you guys, instead of cutting a separate waistband, just cut your pants, the top of your pants, maybe an additional 4 inches higher when cutting it out in the very beginning, to save yourself distress. So the absolute last thing to be done is to sew my label on. And I had it pinned in there, but I guess it fell out. So I have to try them on again to see which one is the back. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so now I'm ready to sew on my label. Okay, now that the pants are done, we can start on the robe. So, let's see what we got. This is the belt that we need to cut down later. These are the pockets. And I think what I'm going to do is keep the edges raw and not fold them under a 1/2 inch before I attach them to the front. So these are the sleeves. So since I grabbed them, I'm going to go ahead and sew them. So what I'm going to do, they're already right sides together. I'm going to sew down a 1/2 inch on this sleeve, on both sleeves. So let's go ahead to the sewing machine. Okay, I'm going to do a few things while I'm at the sewing machine. I'm going to sew these. Let me move the pockets out the way. I'm going to sew the seam of the sleeves while we're at the machine. And then I'm going to attach, okay, these are the 2 front pieces. This is the back of the robe. This is the back. And so I'm going to sew right sides together. Oh, you know what I didn't do earlier? On the front of the sleeve, on the front of the robe pieces, I did not cut out the armhole. I cut out the armhole for the back, but I didn't do the front. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to put right sides together. Okay, so this is the center front here, because I got a little curve there. And the side seam is completely straight. And so let's see what I got on my sleeve. So I'm just going to follow the curve of my sleeve. Just a little curve. See where my back is. So I just want to make sure that the underarm seam of the front and the back are at the same level. So I'm just going to do just a slight curve. Okay, so that's good enough. So this is the back, right side up. This is 1/2 of the front. And this is the other half of the front. Right sides together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the shoulder seam, and then I'm going to sew the side seams. So side seams, shoulder seams, and I'm going to sew the seams of the sleeves all at once while we're at the machine. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pin this off camera real quick. Now see you at the machine. Okay, so I'm going to sew the shoulder seams of the robe first. With a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I tried my robe on and it's a little too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, I'm going to take in 1 inch on both sides. Okay, so I tried it on, and the back is just way too big for my liking. And I don't mind the extra drape of the bottom or the middle, but it's the neckline that makes it really obvious. So the shoulders and the shoulder seam was kind of falling almost to the edge of my shoulder. It wasn't sitting comfortably on my neck. So I took a pin, and I have to take a lot off. So let's see, the fabric is doubled. So this is 6, so I need to take off 12 inches from the back. which means there's going to be a seam in the back, and I'm fine with a seam in the back. So that's already marked. Let's see if I can fold this. First, let me cut off this extra seam that I just got finished sewing. Let's take care of that first. Okay, that's one side seam. Okay, so the side seams are taken care of. So now what I'm going to do, at the hem, I'm going to match side seam to side seam so that I can find the center. Let me get a pin. So I got side seam to side seam. And let me put a pin in it to keep it together. And now I want to find the center. I'm going to take the pin out of here and I'm going to match up the shoulder seams so that I have the center at the top as well. Okay, let me get all this extra stuff off the table. So I need every inch. All these pieces to the side. Okay. Let me move you back some so you can see. Okay, so we got it folded down the center, and what I'm going to do, my pins and my seam gauge, because this is exactly 6 inches. So I'm going to measure, I'm going to put a pin in where I need to cut. So actually I need to take 6 inches off for a total of 12 inches because this is folded in half. But I need to leave enough room for the seam. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to cut off, I'm just going to cut off 5 inches for a total of 10. That way I can do a 1 inch seam allowance if I need to. Okay, so I'm going to pin down 5 inches all the way down. We like to party. Okay, so now I have 5 inches marked all the way down. So I'm going to cut on the outside of these pins. Okay, let's see if we can do something with this piece of fabric there later. So now I'm going to repin. Oh, this fabric is getting all down my throat. I'm going to repin. Just move the pins over to the side I'll be sewing. Okay, so now, as I told you, I left an inch seam allowance, but I'm going to start out, I'm going to only take 5 inches, a half an inch seam allowance, and then try it on. And if I need to, I'll go back and do that full 1 inch seam. So we're going to do a half an inch seam allowance. So let's go to my machine. Okay, I can remove this rubber band now. I am so glad I decided to take out that extra fabric in the back. It is fitting perfectly. So while I had it on, I also pinned in the placement of my pockets. And I decided to change it up a little bit. I'm putting my pockets at a slant. So I got my pocket placement, and I also marked where I want to put my belt loops. So let me get some of the scrap fabric. Use some of the scrap fabric to make the belt loops. So this is a piece of the border of the blanket, the hem, the same piece that I use for, well, the same type of piece I'm using for the belt. It's already hemmed and it's thick. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this piece, cut it in half. And attach it. And this is called using every bit of piece of what you got. Okay. So I'm going to fold it under. Actually, do I want to fold it under? Yeah, I'll fold it under a little. And then pin it. And this belt loop is right on the side seam. So I'm going to fold this under. Sorry you can't get a real good close-up, but you'll see at the end. So again, this is my belt loop, and I just used the edges of the blanket so that I don't have to do any additional sewing. So I'm going to get underneath. And pin. Perfect belt loop. So now let's do the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to pin my pockets in place. So like I said, I have it at a slant. You can't really tell now, but when I put it on, you'll see the slant. Okay. Trying to figure out which way I'm going to start sewing. That way I know which direction to pin. Have the pins. Let's just do this. And remove the pins from back here. Okay, so let's do the same for the other pocket. Okay, so we're going to go to the sewing machine, sew on the two pockets and the belt loops. So I'll meet you at the machine. Okay. So let's sew one pocket on first. Okay, that's done. So now we're going to sew the sleeves, the side seams of the sleeves. Okay, so the sleeves are done. We're going to insert them into the robe. So we're going to fold the robe with the right side on the end, or inside out. So this is the inside of the robe right now. We're going to take a sleeve. I'm going to put a pin right in the center of the sleeve. And so I'm going to stick the sleeve inside the armhole of the robe. So it'll be right sides together on the inside. So now I'm going to match up the side seam of the sleeve with the side seam of the robe and pin. Do the same with the top of the sleeve. Line up that pin, the center of the sleeve, with the center or the shoulder seam. And then we're just going to pin the sleeve in all the way around. And the sleeve fits perfectly in our armhole. Okay, let me do the same with the other side. Fold the sleeve in half and put a pin right at the top of the sleeve. And stick the sleeve inside the robe. Line up the side seam with the seam of the sleeve. Pin the top, where that pin is, to that shoulder seam. Okay, we got the sleeves pinned in. So now let's go to the sewing machine and sew them. sleeves are done. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hem the, we're going to put a hem in all the way around, along the front of our chest, around our neck, and along the hemline. So I'm going to start with this side. I'm going to fold it in a 1/2 inch approximately. I'm not going to measure it out. I'm just going to eyeball it. And this is going to be a hem all the way around the robe. Oh my God, finally. Woo, Lord. Okay, the robe is done, so let's go to my cutting table. Okay, see what we got. Cut off these threads here. Alright. So, last thing I need to do here, sew on my label. And put it directly in the center. Let me trim off that. Okay, so I got the label pinned down. And let's see, in this belt here, I cut a little extra off so I can fold in and make it look nice, but I don't think I need to do that. I'm going to leave the raw edge just as it is. You can't tell. Okay, belt's done. So let me sew the label in. And boys and girls, it's done. See you at the machine.